Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB game schedule for Monday, April 1st, 2024. And if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my rundown best bet in the MLB, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. There's also a link in the description. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Monday, April Fool's Day in Major League Baseball. First up, we see the Atlanta Braves taking on the Chicago White Sox. We're going to see Chris Flexen for Chicago, and it looks like Charlie Morton's going to be making his season debut for the Braves. When I saw this pitching matchup, I just didn't love it for the White Sox. I think Chris Flexen, while he's had a solid MLB career, just not the type of pitcher I'd want up against this Atlanta Braves lineup. A powerful lineup, and Chris Flexen in spring training, when you look at the numbers on paper, 9 innings at 2 ERA, looks pretty good. Only had 4 strikeouts in those 9 innings. Didn't miss enough bats for me. Had 5 walks to go with it, so the control really wasn't even sharp either. And I think the Braves get to him early and often. You add the fact that the White Sox have one of the worst bullpens in baseball, on paper at least, and we saw them blow a game against the Tigers in that series. I can't get there. Give me the Braves here by 1.5. I'll lay the 1.5 runs, but I may think about laying 2.5 runs as well. Next up, we see the Colorado Rockies taking on the Chicago Cubs. Dakota Hudson and Shota Imanaga are your projected starters. Imanaga in spring training, when you look at his numbers, I think they're a little bit deceiving. Sure, the ERA was pretty steep, but when you look at the per nines, the strikeouts per nine, he had 25 Ks in 12 2/3 innings, exactly what you want to see. He only had 3 walks, so the control was there. And in the Japanese leagues last year, his control was excellent. He only had like 1.4 walks per nine, I believe, across 160 innings of work with 188 strikeouts. And he gave up a couple home runs at the beginning of spring, but the final 2 outings, 7 1/3 combined, no home runs given up with 15 strikeouts. I think Imanaga has a big season with the Cubs. Dakota Hudson is a decent pickup for the Rockies, but I don't think he's going to be good enough here. I think the Cubs will be able to get to him for a few runs, and if not, they should be able to get to that Rockies bullpen. So I'm going to go with the Chicago Cubs in this spot at Wrigley Field, the home opener, laying the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the Washington Nationals. We're going to see a pair of lefties on the mound in this one, Marco Gonzalez and Mackenzie Gore. Now, both of these starting pitchers got crushed in one start in spring training. Mackenzie Gore was pitching really well in spring. His first 3 games, he had only 2 earned runs combined. He was missing bats. His control was there. And then that final start where he still had 10 strikeouts in 4 2/3 innings against the New York Mets, he still gave up 9 base hits and 8 earned runs in that game. So that really hurt his spring training numbers overall. But I like the fact that he still misses a lot of bats. He did so last year. I think he's still one of the better options in this Nationals rotation. Mackenzie Gore, like I said, he also had an outing in spring training where he got crushed. And I do think this is going to be a tougher year for him. And I like the fact that, with Gore on the mound for the Nationals, a guy that can miss bats, you're facing a Pirates team that's off to a good start this year, but does strike out quite a bit. This is a Pirates lineup that's going to strike out, probably, be one of the leading teams in strikeouts and strikeout percentage, especially against lefties by the end of the season. So to me, I think there's value with the Nationals in the first 5 innings. The Pirates bullpen's been pretty sharp this season. Nationals bullpen so-so, not great on paper. So I'm going to go with the Nationals in the first 5 innings on the money line. Next up, we see the Kansas City Royals taking on the Baltimore Orioles. Michael Wacha and Dean Kramer are your starters. I think it's a really good pitching matchup in this one. You got Dean Kramer, who was one of the more profitable pitchers in baseball last year, but still a guy who had an ERA above 4. He was, consistent. He's a good guy to have at that 4 or 5 spot in the rotation. Michael Wacha last year, really underrated pitcher, kind of flew under the radar because on the same team as him, or in the same rotation, was Blake Snell, who ended up winning the National League Cy Young. But Wacha himself, 14-4 with a 3.22 ERA. He actually, at the end of the season, he's considered more of a pitch-to-contact guy, but he was earning those strikeouts at the end of the year, and I think he's a really nice pickup for the Royals at the end of the rotation. May move himself up in the rotation if he pitches well, but both guys had solid spring trainings. It's going to be a close game here, and for that reason, we're getting a really good price with the underdog in this one. I'm going to take the 1.5 runs with the Kansas City Royals, probably lean towards the under as well. Next up, we see the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Miami Marlins. No official starter for Los Angeles right now. Max Meyer should be going for the Fish. This is a tough game. 2 teams that are not off to great starts to the season, that's for sure. I would say the Marlins had a lot more expectations after making the postseason last year. Meanwhile, the Angels didn't make the playoffs and they lose Shohei Ohtani, so the expectations kind of all over the place. But I do think Meyer is going to end up being the better option to start this game, even though he might not go too deep into this ball game. He pitched really well in spring training, kind of earned himself a spot in this rotation. We know that the Marlins know pitching. This is a team that's been able to have a ton of successful starting pitchers and relievers, and then, sometimes they move on to different organizations, but this is still, kind of similar to the Tampa Bay Rays, a pitching factory that the Marlins have. The offense has not been great. The defense has also not been great. We've seen the Marlins make a few key errors, but I think this is a good matchup for him to get a big win at home and get the season turned around a little bit. So give me the Marlins in this one. I'm gonna take them on the money line. Next up, we see the Cincinnati Reds taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. Andrew Abbott and Christopher Sanchez are your projected starters. Another game with two lefties on the mound. I like both of these starting pitching options in this ball game. I think Christopher Sanchez was one of the more underrated pitchers again. We talk about Michael Wacha, but one of the more underrated pitchers in baseball last year. He was really solid in the second half of the season. The Phillies really needed to step up in that rotation. They had some injuries, both in the bullpen and the rotation, and he pitched pretty well, and I think he pitches pretty well in this game. His spring training wasn't the best, that's for sure, but Andrew Abbott also struggled towards the end of spring, so I think it's kind of even there, and I think the Phillies bullpen, which is not off to a great start this year, that's for sure, I still think it's one of the better bullpens in baseball. I mean, last year on paper, projected WAR-wise, going into the season, was number one in baseball. So I think the Phillies bullpen's going to be fine. Playing at home here, I like the Phillies' chances. Not my favorite game on the board, but I'm going to go with the Phillies on the money line in this one. Next up, we see the Texas Rangers taking on the Miami Marlins. No official starter for Texas right now, but Ryan Pepiot should be going for the Rays, making his Rays debut. This should be a good one. It's going to be 6:50 Eastern on Fox Sports 1. It's a rematch of last year's postseason contest. And I mentioned how the Marlins no pitching. The Rays really no pitching. I mean, this is a franchise that not only works with the players in-house to optimize their game, but also just knows how to scout, how to know when to cut ties with certain pitchers and try to get a nice haul for them, and also which pitchers to bring in. And we saw Tyler Glasnow, the trade in the offseason that brought in Ryan Pepiot. We've seen it in a couple years ago, or now it's been like 5-6 years ago, where Chris Archer was dealt to the Pirates. Archer at the time was one of the best pitchers in the American League. They bring in Tyler Glasnow, Austin Meadows, a key bat for that team for a few years. So the Rays really know pitching. I think they know what they got here in Ryan Pepiot. A lot of potential in this guy. He can miss a lot of bats. I think he pitches well in this game. Spring training, his numbers were a little inconsistent. He had one really bad outing where he gave up 6 earned runs. But other than that, I mean, his final start of spring, exactly what you want to see. 6 innings, 2 hits, no earned runs, only 1 walk, and 8 strikeouts. He ended the spring with a final 11 innings, 14 Ks. The control was there. I think he pitches well in this one at the Trop. The Rays certainly going to be up for this one. They were swept by the Rangers in that wild card series last year, and I think they get their revenge win in this one. Give me the Rays on the money line. Next up, we see the Detroit Tigers taking on the New York Mets. Sean Manaea going for New York, no official starter for Detroit. Sean Manaea, was a pickup that I questioned a little bit in the offseason for the New York Mets, but I got to say, he was really strong in spring training, and the Mets could really use him to be a strong number 4, number 5 guy in that rotation. He went 16 2/3 in spring training with a 3.24 ERA, 21 strikeouts. The control was there. That's the big thing for Manaea, and he didn't give up a single home run. So I think Manaea is going to be a solid option for the Mets here, and I think against a Detroit team that was so-so against lefties, especially in the second half of the year, Manaea will be able to put together a decent outing. The question is, can the Mets offense back him up? They've been inconsistent to start the year. That first game, they were horrible. We saw Starling Marte with the only hit and the only run. It was a home run. But then they got going in the second game, and I think we see him do enough here offensively to back up Manaea. I know a lot of people are big on the Tigers this season and not so high on the Mets, but I think we're actually getting a really good price with New York because of those expectations. So give me the Mets in this one on the money line. Next up, we see the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Houston Astros. Bowden France is going to get the start in this one. We thought maybe he was going to go on Sunday. He's moved to Monday, and Ronel Blanco going for Houston. Probably the Cy Young of the spring training. He was one of the best pitchers in spring this season for Houston. And, Francis, we mentioned about him on Sunday because we thought he was going. Not my favorite option. I do think the Astros, a team that struggled quite a bit. We got to remember, they struggled quite a bit against right-handed pitching towards the end of the season last year. Starting this year against the Yankees, it wasn't the best series for them. So I think this is a spot, though, to break out, maybe, both offensively and pitching-wise. The bullpen's also not been great for Houston. That was, a surprise because this is a good Houston Astros bullpen on paper. But I think this is a good spot for him to kind of get a breakout win. And like I said, Blanco, one of the best pitchers in spring training this year. I think he does good enough here to get the win for the Astros. So I'm going to go with Houston on the money line. Should be a great game and a really fun series and an important series for Houston. Next up, it's the New York Yankees taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Louis Heel and Ryan Nelson are the projected starters for now, but there is no line, so we could see a pitching change. Louis Heel really won this job in spring training. Somebody that the Yankees had, because of the Garrett Cole injury, they had a lot of guys that were candidates for that final spot in the rotation, the final 2 spots in the rotation. And he pitched so well, 13 and 2/3 innings in March with 20 strikeouts and a sub-2 ERA. It was tough not to give him the job. And the Yankees have said that he doesn't have an innings restriction, so it's somebody that's kind of been featured in the reliever role, or spot starter role, but doesn't really go too deep into ball games. We could see him go 4, 5, maybe 6 innings in this ball game if he pitches well. I think he will pitch pretty well in this game. And, Ryan Nelson, solid option for Arizona, a really strong rotation this year for the Diamondbacks, one of the best on paper in the National League. And Nelson was really solid in spring training, 15 1/3 innings, sub-3 ERA, 16 strikeouts. The only thing was the control, a little bit off. 7 walks in those 15 innings, not what you want to see. This should be a great game and a really entertaining series, but I'm going to go with the New York Yankees. I like the way this team is playing. Their bullpen's been a lot better than I expected this year, and their defense has also been excellent. Juan Soto, we know him for the bat, but his glove's been really solid to start the year, so I'm going to go with the Yankees, and it's dangerous when the Yankees are winning games and Aaron Judge is off to a slow start to the year. Once he gets going, this could be a really dominant team, so give me the Yankees in this one with a lean towards the under. Next up, we see the Boston Red Sox taking on the Oakland Athletics. Tanner Houck and Joe Boyle are the projected starters. We talk about starting pitchers that had, control issues in spring training. Joe Boyle, 13 innings of work, 15 walks in spring. He took it to a new level. He had 14 strikeouts, so he's got potential, but I can't back him in this game. That final start of spring training, 3 innings, 6 base hits, 7 earned runs, 3 walks, and that was against the Chicago White Sox, one of the worst lineups in baseball this year. So to me, while the Red Sox lineup is not as strong as we've seen in recent years, I still think it's good enough here. I think the Red Sox bullpen's a lot better as well. Tanner Houck actually was really solid in spring training, 13 innings, 16 Ks, 2.77 ERA in the month of March. I think he's the much better option in this game. I think the Oakland Athletics, we're going to get some value with this team. They're going to win 40 to 50, maybe 60 games by the end of the year, so we're going to get a lot of plus money opportunities, but this is just not one of them. Give me the Boston Red Sox on the money line. Next up, we see the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Seattle Mariners. This is always a fun series to watch. Last year, the games were really exciting, and it's kind of two franchises that are in the same boat in terms of waiting for that breakout season, that breakout moment. Two teams that have been very competitive the last couple of years, but haven't really had that moment to, in the postseason. But in this game, we see Tristan McKenzie and Emerson Hancock on the mound. Tristan McKenzie returns from, injury last year. Didn't really pitch much. He had 16 innings of work in the regular season. Struggled in those games, but like I said, he was battling injuries. I don't put too much weight into that. In spring training, a really promising sign to see him go 14 2/3. The control was pretty solid. The strikeout stuff was there, and he had a 3.07 ERA. So exactly what you want to see. And I think that the Guardians, while Terry Francona is no longer the manager, they're playing that similar style of small ball. Even though the major leagues have really changed to value the home run ball a lot more and power pitching, this team is playing small ball, and they limit strikeouts, they get on base, they steal bases, they have excellent defense, and the pitching is situational. They don't have huge names in the rotation, but their pitchers do enough to get the job done. And I know you don't want to overreact to one series because it was against the Oakland Athletics, but I still see the same things we saw from the Guardians last few years that make them one of the more profitable teams in baseball. So I'm going to go with the Guardians here. I like this Mariners team. They're actually one of my dark horses to potentially win the World Series this season because they got great pitching, great bullpen, a young lineup that's got some talent. But to me, I got to go with the Guardians. I just think that this team is built for series like these. So give me the Guardians in this one on the money line. Next up, we see the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the San Diego Padres. Kyle Gibson and Matt Waldron. Pretty fun pitching matchup here. Gibson making his Cardinals debut. Waldron, a knuckleball pitcher, making his season debut. And, it's going to be interesting to see. It's kind of tough to handicap how the Cardinals are going to do against a knuckleballer. And you don't see very many knuckleball pitchers left in baseball. But Waldron certainly won the job. In February in spring training, 5 innings of shutout ball. And then in March, 8 1/3 innings. He had 9 strikeouts, no walks. So his control was there, no home runs, and a 2.16 ERA. The last time we saw a dominant knuckleball pitcher was probably about 10 years ago with R.A. Dickey. And, those types of pitchers can really go on a big run and where they're one of the best pitchers in baseball. We'll have to see if Waldron can compete like that. But I think he's going to be good enough, at least in the first few innings of this one. I don't love the look of this Padres bullpen right now. I'm a little bit concerned with it. So I'm just going to take the Padres in the first 5 innings on the money line. I think they'll be able to get to Gibson for a few runs and hopefully, be able to lead after the first 5. But that bullpen, a little scary right now for San Diego. Next up, we see the San Francisco Giants taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. No official starter for San Francisco in this one. We should see James Paxton going for the Dodgers. That is a tough game here. Not my favorite game, and we'll have to see when the Giants announce their starter. But, James Paxton last year pitched 96 innings of work, a 4.5 ERA. Wasn't my favorite option, gave up, quite a few home runs. And then in spring training this season, 7 innings, 4 earned runs, only those 6 strikeouts with a homer. Didn't have great numbers, a 5.14 ERA. The Giants last year struggled quite a bit against lefties, but they kind of addressed those issues in the offseason by bringing in Matt Chapman, a righty, Jorge Soler. Their lineup's a lot better. I think a lot more equipped to handle left-handed pitching, and I think they'll be able to compete in this ballgame and in this series. This is always a fun series to watch as well. Some really great series this week in Major League Baseball to start, but I'm going to go with the San Francisco Giants plus the 1.5 runs with a sprinkle on the money line. And that's it. Those are the games for Monday. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, and don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pickdawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.